One thing I've been really fascinated about is we all talk about, or at least I do, about storytelling, how storytelling is really how you do business and how you put out content on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, Google+, all these platforms. And I think about this quite a bit. I think that too many people are looking at social media as one thing while not respecting how different the community, even though if you're the same business or same person on Tumblr and on Facebook, how different they are, even though if it's the same person. So I've been thinking a lot about storytelling and the nuances, and what Vayner thinks about is how do we properly storytell in these platforms, respecting the native tongue of these platforms, because they're quite different. But something I've become more and more fascinated about lately is mobile. How mobile is the place where we consume so much, and the dirty secret that nobody's really talking about is even though on desktop, Facebook and Pinterest and Tumblr look very different, when it comes to here, when you open these things up on your apps, they kind of look the same. Big core piece of content, community, actions. And I think that's one of the big things that we all need to start figuring out is how are we going to storytell on the platform that's delivered on this while respecting the nuances of the platform. Storytelling, platform, and what it's delivered on. Start paying attention because 2013 is going to depend on it.
Darn it, he said the year. I was going to ask you, what year do you think that was? So he shot that video in 2012, and he already was talking about storytelling on a mobile device. Now we're in 2017, almost 2018, and it's here. Like that, he was talking about this 5 years ago, right? Everything you guys do is consumed on this device right here. Would you agree or disagree? Or agree, right? And so how are you going to storytell on mobile, on a mobile device? That's what we want you guys to think about today and really try to take back to your school and apply some of the things that we are going to do today. The whole idea for today is to repurpose some content, so we're not creating a story has already been created through written, and we're going to repurpose that. And so that's what we do at Strive. Anything, I bother Austin all the time about this, anything we create, we're always going to create multiple versions of that for different platforms because they all interact differently, right? So Instagram is different than Snapchat in a way, and Snapchat is obviously different than Facebook, and Facebook is different than Twitter. We all interact with those apps and consume information very differently on those. And so how you storytell on those is very important. And so that's what we kind of want to just get you a little bit of taste of that today with the project that we're going to work on and get you guys to start to really open up your minds and think differently about how to storytell on mobile. So one of the things we've been really focused on at Strive is live streaming, right? That's been the core of what we do. And as we our motto has been how to, to help schools share their story online, we've really felt we need to do a better job at teaching you that. One of the things we feel like, and no offense to everyone in the room, and maybe you guys do a great job, but students maybe don't understand what a really good story is. And I'm looking at the English teacher in the back who probably teaches his students that, but we have been kind of focused more on the streaming side, which doesn't really tell a story. It's part of your school's story, but a story can be lots of different things. And so we really want to focus on that today and share with you kind of when we look at a story and are brainstorming through that process, what that looks like. And so you guys can take and steal ideas from us and take that back to your school. And so then you can integrate that content that you create into your broadcast, right? So maybe you do a little coach's spotlight and tell a story from the coach and maybe go a little bit deeper with the coach. Eric's going to maybe touch on a podcast that he started called Why I Coach. In the past, we every week did a show called Prep Huddle Live, and the time that we did the show on Wednesday, and that only lasted probably 2 to 3 days before that content was dead. And then we went on to the next week, right? So now we kind of looked at our content. Come on in, guys. We looked at our content. We're like, how can we go deeper with a coach and get to know who that coach is as an educator? And so we started this podcast called Why I Coach, and it really dives in like, who is this person? Why did they get into coaching and education? Why don't you guys come like third row or second row, wherever. We know you guys had the longest drive, so thank you for coming. So I love this quote. We put this on our story workflow. So tell me a fact and I will learn. Tell me the truth and I will believe. Tell me a story and it will live in my heart forever. Some Indian proverb said, or Indian said that. They didn't have it. I saw that in a book, I think. So the power of the story. So when we look, for us at Strive, we're going to just use kind of us as an example today. When we look at what is a good story? And our team kind of does that through, we kind of talk amongst each other, Eric and Austin and I, and Sarah even, we do a lot of sports content. And so when we look at that, we're like, maybe was there an injury, some type of conflict that happened, or they overcame something, or we did a video with Malcolm this year covering all three of their girls' sports. They won state softball, girls volleyball got second, and cross country was top 5 or something like that. And so we're like, that's a great story that needs to be told. And to cover kind of all three of those, it was a mammoth project. Austin cranked it out in like a week and a half, I think it took him. Off and on, and it was 12 minutes, one of our longest feature, kind of what we call our camp confidentials. And we didn't really know what it was going to look like until we got there. These guys did it all, I didn't, and we'll kind of show some of that. But that was one of those where sometimes you kind of on the surface level know there's some story there, but until you actually get there and start talking and asking questions, and questions are key in the whole process, then you uncover, wow, this is really neat. This is a C1 school that has three girls sports, very successful. Like probably every girl is out for athletics almost to make that possible. And so to tell that in a video format was pretty unique for us. And Austin had to take, 7 interviews? And 2 days of B-roll and put that into a story and ebbed and flowed that back and forth and weaved it all together, and it was pretty cool. And so when we think about a story for us digitally, we've got our 4 icons here that we've kind of settled on. We think about story in audio format. So we've got our microphone, so that's what Eric is skilled in. And so when you think about telling stories, you need to use the strengths that you have. So if you're a good writer, you don't need to be maybe doing a podcast and talking, right? You're better skilled, your strength is writing. And so we have, that could be on Medium or WordPress or some blogging platform. We have photo, so if you're skilled in photography and you tell a story, maybe you need to post that photo on Instagram and write a cool caption with that. There are photographers across the world that are making money at being influencers on Instagram. And so you can tell a really cool story. What is the saying? A picture's worth
1,000 words.
Right? So we deal with images, and that's why Instagram has really blown up, is because of photography. And then Austin's really good at video editing, so we're going to use that skill. And Eric's really good at interviewing, and so he can get people to kind of open up and tell something that maybe they've never said before. And he's really worked on that craft through his podcast, which I mentioned, doing that. And so we have a unique skill set on our team. Now, if your team doesn't have some of these pieces, that's okay. Focus on the ones that you are strong at. And then how are you going to tell that story on this device as well? So Eric does a podcast every week now called Why I Coach, which I already mentioned. And we don't just upload that to SoundCloud and put it on Apple Podcasts, which it automatically goes there, and then just expect people to listen to that, right? What do you do, Eric, after you do the podcast? What are all the ways we're distributing that?
Well, the first way is, so the cool thing about SoundCloud is that you can share a SoundCloud link on Twitter, and when someone finds it on Twitter and they click that link, they don't actually leave the Twitter app. How many times do you click a link and it takes you to a website or it takes you somewhere else, right? So SoundCloud is actually powerful enough. They can play the file right within Twitter. So that was like step 1 after we get it uploaded and ready to go. It goes to Twitter real quick. And then the next thing that I do is I take that SoundCloud file and I can embed it into a post on our website on Strive Sports. And so now I'm putting together a little bit more of a written synopsis of kind of the things that we talk about in the story. You try to tease a little bit of what might be interesting. This coach has 700 career wins. How do you get to 700 career wins? Well, you literally start the program. Okay, so that's part of the teaser. So that all goes on the website, but again, now it's just sitting on our website, so we still have to share that. So Facebook is the biggest thing that we can do as far as sharing. So I'm sharing a link from our website onto our Facebook pages, and then we share it out. We tag the school, we tag the coach if we can, and then it's been real interesting to see how it grows from that. Facebook definitely gets shared the most, but we get just almost as many clicks from Twitter.
Yeah.
Just being able to play it right in Twitter itself.
And he also, I can't remember if you said this or not, but he also then takes a graphic, and then last week with Coach Stein at Grand Island Northwest actually pulled the audio, and Austin pulled some quotes and actually told the story in an Instagram story from the podcast. So we aren't just settling with one piece of content, we're uploading it, and then expecting people to watch it. You have to be able to share this. I was just at Wood River, I just shared this with you guys, but you have to be able to distribute that content. No one, that's just the world we live in, right? We're bogged down, we're in a really just overload of information, but how is your content going to get in front of people? And so you have to be on all these different platforms to do that, and that's why this project today is repurposing a written story. So we looked at you guys as your generation. We're like, as I went around schools, I was like, do any of you guys read stories on a blog? And the majority of you said no, your age. And I'll get a quick raise of hands. How many in this week, maybe with the big news yesterday in Vegas, but how many read a news article on their phone or paper or something like that, read through a full story? One, two, a couple of you, a pretty good amount, right? So some of you didn't, right? So we need to be able to take the stories and put it where you are. How many of you watched an Instagram story in the last week or Snapchat story? You know, the rest of your hands go up, right? So that's how you're consuming content. And so everyone's consuming content differently and all through these 4 different mediums, right? So there's lots of different ways. So we're not just settling with one place and then just, okay, now come and listen to it. We're sharing it personally on our Facebook page. We're tagging the coach because then Facebook sees that. We could spend a whole day on just how the algorithms work on social media as well and how they're choosing to show you what you are interested in. And Snapchat, Instagram has an algorithm, but Snapchat doesn't really have that yet. But I guarantee as they start to get to know you guys more, they'll start to put stuff that you're interested in. Maybe they already do with the Discover feed. I don't know if they're rearranging that. And I asked you guys that, what you're consuming there. We'll get into that in a bit. So I just want to put some emphasis on that. Those are the 4 different mediums. What drives us, and specifically me, is I didn't have this when I was in high school. And I graduated in 2003 and went to Doane. And I was in yearbook. I spent the whole year working on the basketball spread. That was my one 2-page project. And I waited till the last 2 weeks after I graduated to get it done. Total waste of time. If we would have had the internet, or I would have been a little bit more proactive, we could have done some really cool stuff throughout the year. And so that's why I always go into schools and like, if you're in yearbook or any type of journalism class or this class, be sharing your story every day. There's so many different opportunities to do that. And so I just saw a video went to Hampton the other day, and I showed them a little video that Austin did of the first day of football practice on our Instagram. I just went and shot some video. Austin put some music and put 18 days to kickoff and matched it up, made it really cool. Girl saw that and she went to practice and did the same thing. And so there's just content, there's stories, there's so much around you, and I don't think you guys realize that every day, right? And so we're gonna go around the room and get a little interactive and share. I want you guys to think about what's a good story that positive, not a negative, but a good story that you heard or read or watched or listened to, and how you consume that, where you consume that at. And so I was at COZAD a couple weeks ago, back in August, and I asked the class, there were about 20 of them there, and I said, hey, what's a story you've heard lately that was a good story? And a guy raised his hand, and you guys heard this already, and my team's getting sick of this. But this dude, he goes, yeah, I heard about this girl that was found dead in a ditch the other day. And I was like, thanks, man. That's a really positive, encouraging story. Exactly what I was looking for, being very sarcastic. And then another kid said something about that he heard on the news, which I was surprised they watched the news anyway. And then finally a girl raised her hand. She goes, yeah, actually, we have a classmate of ours that just made it past the first round of American Idol in Chicago. And I go, oh my goodness, that's the type of stories that you guys need to be sharing. And they were doing some project that meant nothing to them. I can't even remember what they were working on, something stupid. I'm not gonna lie, sorry, Gavin, if you're watching this, but it just wasn't relevant to them. So the emphasis on that is you guys have stories around you in your school with your classmates. And so what I do when I come in and talk to classes is we find out about each other and what you guys are doing on the weekends as a hobby, or maybe your family travels and does something unique. There are stories all around you guys. Sometimes you guys don't realize it, and you can share those. Those are the easiest ones because you know that person. But sometimes it's the hardest too, and Eric can attest to that too. Interviewing people is tough. It's not it's an enjoyable process when someone opens up to you, and that is all about the questions. And so if you're a good writer, there is a career for you writing questions in this new age of digital content. If you're a good writer, there are going to be lots of jobs available to you to be able to help companies. Just listen to a podcast. Does anyone know what a copywriter is? Or like sales copy? So there are people that actually have a job to write email copy to get you to buy their product. Like that's a job. And there's a guy that does a workshop for $5,000 and sells this to people to learn how to write better email copy to sell their product, whatever that is. And so if you're a good writer, that's huge. And that writing applies to all kind of 4 of those different ways. And that's, a majority of what stories have been the last, several years, especially with the newspaper. But originally story was just through audio, right? Through voices. And that's how stories were told until people could actually print. That's when, books and things like that really blew up. And so it's been the same the whole time. We're just consuming it differently. And now it's on this device. And so now it gets shared, and there's the social aspect, and we get to know what other people are reading, which is sometimes scary too. So I'm going to go around the room. What's a story that you've consumed lately? I'm going to start with you. And what app did you consume that on?
Does it have to be like a good story or just any story?
It could be any story. I don't want anything about Vegas or anything like that. We'll stay away from that.
That's a good idea.
Well, last night I heard that Tom Petty died.
Yeah, and what, did you listen to Tom Petty, or what I want to try to get out of this is why you guys clicked on that, or why you guys consumed that?
Just my dad, he plays classic rock and that type just all the time. He has
So it kind of was a shocker.
about vinyl albums and
There you go.
a large amount of them I've hit.
And maybe we don't have to go down the line, but just raise your hand if you've consumed a story or heard something really cool or positive, and then why you consume that. Because I'm really interested in learning that, because the goal today is to create content how you consume it, right? Don't want to, if you don't watch the news at 10 o'clock at night, let's not create a news show that looks like that, because you yourself aren't going to watch that 8 to 10 minute show. Create something that you would consume yourself. Someone over here? Go ahead.
Mike Moustakis, for the Kansas City Royals. I think he hit his 37th career home run just the other week.
In the season, you mean? I think he's got more than 37 in his career, right?
Yeah, it's in the season.
In the season, yeah. That's a lot. And he's probably not coming back to the Royals, right? Did everyone see that video of them hugging, walking off the field together? If you're a Royals fan, anybody Royals fans? Obviously. Go ahead.
I know you'll talk about this later, but I watched your video you shared last night on Facebook about the Why I Create.
About Ben Coleman?
Yeah, about that lady who is in pottery and she went through a really tough time and someone brought it back to her.
So we're kind of bummed. Ben was supposed to be talking right now instead of me, but we've got some videos. So Ben Coleman, I grew up with the guy, and then he kind of went off, and he went to UNL and got a camera. So Sarah just wrote a story about him. Got a camera from his sisters at Christmas and just started documenting. He was an audio production major, did travel with bands and stuff like that, and just started this thing called Why I Create, and interviews people in the Lincoln area. He's releasing a video with John Cook, which no one has really had access to this guy, the head women's volleyball coach at Nebraska. And I've heard it's kind of amazing, and we'll show the clip the preview. Keith Williams, a wide receiver coach, he got access to him, and so he's got some really cool connection, and he tells a story. It inspired us to kind of change the way we tell stories a little bit, and so we'll pull up some of those. But yeah, there's just, You know, there's so many stories out there of people doing things or have gone through certain things, and that's what makes it really valuable and inspires us, right? Is saying, you know, and you want to share that, right? You want to share that. Maybe you automatically think of someone that maybe went through something similar, and you want to share that with them to help them get through that moment or whatever. And it's great when they can come through that, and then you can reflect and look back. That's when a story is really powerful. Anybody else? It could be NFL. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Okay, so I was at a football game Friday night, and so I didn't get to watch the Husker football game or the volleyball game. But through the power of social media, as we were packing up, I could tell you that you know, the football team won and looks actually halfway decent doing it, and that volleyball was down 2-0 and came back and won 3-2. And so that I didn't get to watch or listen to any of that content, but Instagram stories, Snapchat, Twitter, I kind of used all those mediums, and I found out the story of how all that happened.
It's pretty remarkable. I wasn't planning on telling this story, but my grandma is 91, I think. I think she's 91. She's in the hospital right now. She got moved from the nursing home to the hospital, and I went to go see her last night after I got some food supplies, and I forgot to tell my wife that I was stopping by, but she saw me on Find My Friends. How many people have Find My Friends on their phone? And their parents are on it as well? I know Sarah does. Sarah's dad texts, like, what are you doing there? So my wife saw me there. She's like, is everything okay? I'm like, yep, I just felt like I should go see Grandma. And I forgot to text Jess, and so I was texting, and my grandma, I don't even know how she saw me. She goes, are you texting? And I said, yep. She goes, gosh, I wish we would have had that when, you know, back in the day. Like, she had to wait for a letter from her husband in Idaho during World War II and had no idea, you know, what he was doing or if he was okay. So, like, don't take this for granted. I think some of you with Snapchat streaks and stuff like that, yeah, that's cool and fun. But, like, this is an amazing tool, and use it for positive. I just was at Twitter a couple weeks ago with a student from Nebraska that got nominated for this Digital for Good event because he created a student section Twitter account called the Northwest Shipyard. And they had some Snapchat issues, people doing some nasty stuff on Snapchat, and he used that to promote positive, encouraging things at their school. And so turned something negative into a positive and created, you know, the themes for the games and things like that. And so that's what this is all about today too. Like, we want to share positive things that are happening in the school too. So